Okay, hiya, we're just going to do a quick video on factorising quadratics. So here we go. So factorise, hopefully we now know, means that we are putting it into brackets. And when you have a quadratic, that is the result of expanding two brackets, double brackets, okay? So whether you use foil or a grid or a banana, or whatever method you use to expand two brackets, when you expand them, you'll get something that looks like any of these, okay? And those are quadratics, all right? Now, generally, when you have a quadratic, you will have an x squared term and an x term and something on the end, okay? Now, obviously here, you don't have an x term, but you do have something on the end. If you just had the x squared and the 6x without the 8 on the end, that would be a single bracket when you factorise it, okay? So just be careful to try and sort of look for if it's going to be a double or a single bracket. Okay, right, when you are factorising quadratics, and there is no, this is important, there is no number in front of the x squared, okay? So there's no number there, which is what we call a coefficient. There is no coefficient of x squared. There's no number in front of x squared. Then you know that that has to have come from a pair of brackets where we've got x in both brackets, okay? Because there's no number in front of x, so x times x gives us that x squared term, okay? You are then looking for two numbers that multiply to get the end number and add to get the number in front of x. So here we've got to times to get 8 and add to get 6. So you're timesing to get the number on the end, the number that hasn't got an x in, and you're adding to get the number in front of x. Okay, so obviously, if you can't think of them, think of factors of 8. So we've got 1 and 8, 2 and 4. Which pair of factors adds to get 6? It's going to be 2 and 4. Doesn't matter which way round you write them. So that factorise is x squared plus 2, no, sorry, x plus 2, x plus 4. Now you could check it, obviously, by expanding it. I don't recommend that you do this every time. I think you should just get into the habit of getting it right the first time and not having to check, and that'll make it much easier. But there we go, we've checked it, happy days, it works. Okay, right, let's look at the second one then. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to get the number on the end. So they've got a times to make 12, and they've got to add to make 7. So two numbers that times to get 12 and add to get 7. We know it's going to be two brackets. We know there's got to be an x in both. Two numbers that times to get 12 and add to get 7 would be 3 and 4. Okay, right, now we're going on to some negative ones. Some with negatives in, you just have to be a bit careful with your signs here. So, we're looking for two numbers that multiply to get minus 10 and add to get minus 3. Okay, if they've got to times to get a negative, the only way we can times to get a negative is to have one of the numbers being positive and one of the numbers being negative. Okay, because don't forget, a positive times a positive is a positive, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So to get a negative when we're multiplying, we need to have one positive and one negative. Okay, now the easiest way I think of this is if they've got to add to get minus 3, that means the two factors have to be 3 apart. So if we think about factors of 10, we've got 1 and 10, and 2 and 5. So obviously this pair are 3 apart. Okay, so we know it's going to be this pair. We then have to just work out which one needs to be negative. So because we've got to add to get a negative number, we hopefully need the biggest number to be smallest. So it's minus 5 plus 2. That gives us minus 3. If it was minus 2 plus 5, that would give us a positive 3, and we need it to be negative 3. So your signs are really important here. Okay, so these are our two numbers, plus 2 and negative 5. So it's x plus 2, x minus 5. When you're doing these, the negative signs are quite tricky. So just take time to think, okay, well, what do I need to multiply to get that? Is it a positive or a positive and a positive, positive and a negative, or two negatives? And then think about which number do I need to be the negative one. Okay, right, here's number 4. So here, we've got to times to get positive 9, but add to get minus 6. Okay, so here we're timesing to get a positive. Now if we're timesing to get a positive, there either has to be two positives or two negatives. Okay, Now, given that we've got to add to get a negative, we cannot add two positive numbers and get a negative. So it can't be two positives. That's going to be impossible. So it's going to have to be two negatives. We're then thinking of factors of 9, 1 and 9, 3 and 3. They've got to add to get 6. 3 and 3 add to get 6. And so it's going to be those two, and they're both going to be minus 3. Minus 3 times minus 3 is positive 9. Minus 3 add minus 3 is minus 6. So my two brackets are x minus 3, x minus 3. Now, if you're being really smart, because those two brackets are the same, you could write them as x minus 3 squared. Right, number 5. We've got to find two numbers at times to get minus 12, add to get 11. Okay, we've got a times to get a negative. So if we are timesing to get a negative, we're going to have one positive and one negative. And we've got to think of factors of 12, 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Which ones are going to be 11 apart is 1 and 12. We need it to be positive 11. So that means we need our big number to be positive. So we're going to have that to be positive and that to be negative. 12 take away 1 is 11, or 12 add minus 1 is 11. Minus 1 times 12 is minus 12. Happy days. So it's x minus 1, x plus 12. Okay, right, the last bit I'm just going to show you is a very special case. So here, this is a quadratic, but obviously it doesn't have the x term in like all the others have had. Okay, but you can still think of it the same way. So I've got to find two numbers at times to get minus 25 and add to get 0, because that's a number in front of x. So if I'm timesing to get a minus, that must have to mean I need one positive and one negative, and I need them to be 0 apart. So thinking of factors of 25, 1 and 25, or 5 and 5. Well, 5 and 5 would work, because 5 take away 5 makes 0. 5 times minus 5 equals minus 25. So my brackets are x plus 5, x minus 5. Okay, now this is actually what we call a special case, and the special case is because if you have a minus here and this is a square number, it is, number, I can't spell, number, it is what we call the difference of two squares. Okay, the difference of two squares basically means you square root this number, which is 5, one's plus and one's minus. Okay, so the difference of two squares, sometimes I call it dots for an abbreviation, difference of two squares. So if we look at number 7, here we've got this is square, and we're subtracting them. The square root of 81 is 9, so it's the difference of two squares, one's a plus, one's a minus, doesn't matter which order, x plus 9, x minus 9. Okay, right, number 8 is very similar, it's just slightly harder because there's a number in front. Now this only works for the difference of two squares, okay, don't start doing this on these ones. If there's a number in front of x squared, it only works for these. Here is a square number, 4 and x squared are both square, 25 is also square, there's a minus in the middle. So we know it's going to be two brackets, it's the difference of two squares. The square root of 25 is 5, so one's plus 5, one's minus 5. We then need to square root 4x squared. Now the square root of 4x squared is 2x. 2x times 2x gives us 4x squared. So it's 2x plus 5, 2x minus 5. Okay, similarly here, this is another difference of two squares, both of these being square numbers. So square root each bit. Square root of 36 is 6, square root of y squared is y. So 6y in both of them. One's a plus, one's a minus. Square root of 121 x squared is 11x. So it's 6y minus 11x, and 6y plus 11x. I hope that helps.